Hi, and welcome to Dear Art Producer. I am your host, Heather Elder, and today is May 10th, 2022, and I'm joined by integrated and creative producer Taylor Kigar. Taylor has tackled stills, broadcast, illustration, and cinema 4D productions, most recently at Deutsch, New York. She's a literature lover, a baking enthusiast, and queen of the perfectly crafted email. On the weekends, you can find her at a good Brooklyn dive bar or probably just chasing her feral cat around the house. Welcome, Taylor. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited.
So happy to have you. I'm so curious about what the perfectly crafted email is. How does that even work nowadays?
Well, so I have a writing degree that I don't use. So emails are very important to me. But also, I think I email people more than I talk to people like in real life these days. So it's very important to make sure it's succinct and it's clear and there's no glaring issues. It's very important to me.
I agree. And I think a lot of times when I'm emailing, I'm moving so quickly that I need to remind myself to stop and reread my emails because 9 out of 10 of them have a typo or something that needs addressing, right?
Yeah.
So when you really take an extra second to do it correctly, I feel like it's the effect is exponential.
It really is.
Well, thank you for the added reminder. I know that when I'm on text, I'm not nearly as conscientious. Texting tends to, my fingers move so fast. I feel like half the time the autocorrect doesn't keep up with me. So
same. My texting and my emails are very, very different. I'm very shorthand on the text.
Yep, I agree. Well, thank you for joining us today. I'm really excited to have you as a guest. And I always like to start the talk out by finding a little bit more about you and your path to your job. Because as I've said a million times, none of us in this job have, raised their hand to say they wanted to be an art producer back in college when they were studying. And it just, a lot of us didn't even know that it existed. So how did you even get to be part of this?
Definitely. So I kind of always had a bit of a photo background. I originally went to college for photo and writing and kind of switched back and forth between the two. And then I got a writing job right out of college and realized I don't really want to write for money. So I wanted to find something else that was more fun and more in the photo world because I just like writing on my own time. That's where it gets fun for me. So I did, after I decided I didn't want to do that anymore, I bounced around to quite a few different industries. The first one being just like a rental studio. So I started at this rental studio it was originally in Soho, and then I moved to FiDi, and I was, helping rent spaces for brands. I was helping them out with their equipment list, and they also had an in-house production side. So that was how I was first introduced to it. And I thought like, oh, that might be something I want to, explore. But I didn't get there until I came back to New York because I bounced between New York and Chicago quite a few times. So I started working with this screen printing company in Chicago who, as well as like, making their own merchandise, they also were setting up like experiential, like live print events. Like they would go to all the different festivals. Like we worked at Lollapalooza, we worked at Pitchfork.
That's cool.
So I kind of started through production, as I say, it's kind of like a trap door, like through experiential.
Oh my God, I'm going to use that. It's so true.
Yeah. And so I was, after that, like, cause I enjoyed it, but I wanted to come back to New York and I was trying to figure out like, I was reinventing myself for like a third time, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And it kind of dawned on me. I was like, oh, production, obviously, like art, being an art producer specifically, because like that is what I am most interested in, is like finding the right person for the job.
And at that point, did you understand that if you went to an ad agency, there was that role that existed that you could do?
Not really at all. So, but like, it's kind of a serendipitous thing. So literally the night that I realized that, I was looking up a bunch of different agencies, and the next day, one of my friends reached out to me. It's like, oh, I have a friend who's hiring at Deutsch. Have you ever thought about being a producer? I was like, I just decided this last night. So like, it has to be a sign. And so within like a week, I was meeting with Sarah Manna. Like I flew out to Chicago. Sarah. We got down to the final 2 and I didn't get the job.
Oh my gosh.
I ended up moving back to New York anyway. I was hired as an associate producer for like an e-commerce site. I did a lot of stuff for Tommy Hilfiger, like Calvin Klein, GH Bass, stuff like that. And so I let her know I was back. And then a year later, they made a position for me. So I was hired in the art print production department. And the thing about Sarah is Sarah knows everybody, which was my biggest drive of wanting to work with her. And the two of us worked really, really closely on finding the right person for the job and just, making lists of all these artists who could, work for us. And it was the most fun part of, what I do. We're very integrated like right now. So I'm not always doing that, but that is what drew me to specifically like art producing, because it's like a scavenger hunt,
Yes. And finding the right person to partner with to not only learn, but to produce with is pretty amazing. And Sarah is one of the best. She's really fantastic.
Yeah.
You're very fortunate.
So that is how I got here.
That's great. Okay. So what are you known for on your team?
It honestly, I think it is that exact crossover, because we're all so we have a new head of production who started in February, and with that we did all of our producers pretty much became integrated. So like the boundaries aren't really up anymore. But one of the things that I feel like on my team, and I work the closest with Sarah about, like, okay, we need to brainstorm like these artists, like, who's going to help us, like who knows like the biggest group of people, or who knows how to find the right person. And I feel like Sarah and I that's like one of the best things that we do here, and it's one of my favorite things to do.
That's awesome. Well,
especially like fine artists too, just kind of like even outside photographers and directors, because ad comes up, people ask you the craziest questions, like, do you think you could find a person to like, melt all this stuff for us? And
yeah.
Like, yeah, sure, why not? And so I love that. I love just like getting on websites, just sifting and finding new people.
Yeah, well, and it just shows how much our business has changed. It used to be that we would have 100% of your time, right? The reps who represent photographers and directors. That's all you would be looking for, would be for, you'd have to get to know all the different photographers that were out there. And now you are, not only because you're integrated, but because, of the experiential aspect of our jobs. Or of what our clients need, we have evolved, or your roles have evolved so much to be able to just really dig in and figure out pretty much anything out.
Definitely, but it is still nice to have our reps who are just a beacon of knowledge and can help point us in the right direction. It's really great.
That. Okay, well, talk to me a little bit about your role as an art producer. I mean, we just kind of touched on how you have to do a little bit of everything, but let's talk about the day-to-day part of being this integrated producer.
So definitely, it depends on what the project is, which is the reason why I do like the job so much. Is, one day you're on a deep dive to find like a sculpture artist, and then the next day you need to find someone who can make animations out of paper, and the next day you need someone who has a very specific like documentary photography background. So whenever these shoots start coming, that's when we'll spend all the time researching, and then it also we'll kick it off to our creative teams, and it's kind of like a back and forth. I love like trying to convince people. Usually like the work will speak for itself, but that day to day, it's sort of like a secret. It's like almost a secret club to me. Just like, what about this person? What about this person? And just like talking about what they can bring to the work, how to elevate the work. That's pretty much like always a day-to-day thought in my mind, is like, how can I elevate this work to the best of my ability? And like, who can I hire that's going to elevate this work in the right way?
And do you feel like you have the support of your teammates and agency?
Oh, definitely. That's something that I really love about Deutsch the most, is no one like gatekeeps their secrets. Like if we have like just docs and docs of like, oh, we worked with these people and we really enjoyed them, so everybody needs to know about them.
Okay. And now what is the most challenging aspect of your job? If that's something you love about your job, what's the most challenging aspect?
Well, COVID's really thrown a wrench into things, as I'm sure everybody likes to talk about. So I won't get too much on that, because everybody knows that COVID has made everything hard, because we've been shooting remotely. We haven't been able to be in person. So that aside, I think the most challenging aspect is just keeping up with all of the changes in social media and the changes in tech and the capabilities of like of what you can do. Like, you don't know what you don't know, you know? So like every single day, I feel like there's some new form of technology that is going to help us capture something different. And it's just always changing. The goalposts are changing. And so I do enjoy it, but it is challenging to, keep up with what can be done and how, you don't get left behind.
I agree with that. I mean, I feel the same way from where I sit, but I would also add to that it makes it exciting, right? Because I'm constantly still learning. No matter how long I've been in this business, I feel like we're all still learning. And I'm appreciative for that, because every time I sit down at my desk, it's something new or something different.
Absolutely.
And, I love being in an industry that, we're a creative industry. So we can't sit back and just be okay with the status quo. We're naturally, and organically always pushing forward and pushing ourselves to do something bigger, better, different, more creative, whatever it is. And I think by the sheer nature of that in our industry, it makes us kind of strive for challenges like that.
Yeah. And then on the flip side of it, you as a producer can know all of the new technology as much as you want, but then you have to bring the client along and be like, do you trust me? Like, no one's really done this before, but you could be the first to do it. So it's a very big balancing act for sure.
Yes, that is such a big part of it. You're right. Well, speaking about your clients, tell me what they're asking of you right now. Are they hesitant to produce? If they are, why are they holding back? If they're not, what are they producing? Is it stills, motion, both, experiential? What's coming across your desk?
So I'm, as far as like production experience goes, I am on the newer side, like I said. So when I did start with Deutsch, it was April 2020. So obviously the first year, no one was really shooting because nobody really could. So we were doing a lot of stock, we were doing a lot of animation, we were doing illustration, and everybody is still doing that. I think there was a really big animation resurgence right around there that isn't stopping. But a lot of people, they're like, okay, we can be back on set. We know how to do it safely. Like, let's shoot. And I think that there hasn't been like just a plain still shoot that I've come across like in a really, really long time. Everything's integrated now. Like, it's mostly motion, and then the photos kind of are an add-on for me.
And do you find that when you have a shoot like that, are you looking for photographers that are also directors that can do both? Or are you looking for photographers that can piggyback on a motion, like a motion shoot through a production company or something?
As always, I think it is dependent on the job, but I know that it is true. And I don't always necessarily agree with this, but it is a new trend of like, every artist has to be a Swiss Army knife, like you need to be able to do a little bit of everything, which is both a pro and a con to the industry, I think, because it's always good to be thinking in an integrated way. But, some people are just really, really, really good at what they do, and they don't need to, lose their focus from that to like try and do something else that someone tells them to do. But just industry standard, I think most people are looking for photographers and directors who can do both.
I agree. I totally agree. I've been recently having conversations with each of our photographers about their websites and looking closely at how they are presenting motion, because motion is such a priority and is always leading now. Hiding your motion behind a motion tab, 5 tabs down after all your other stuff.
Yeah, we can't do that anymore.
No, it really, you need to show that it's integrated. It needs to be a priority on your site to show, part of your communications. And, we can show a project, but if there's no motion in it, that's fine. But we need to make sure then we're showing equal amounts of motion later on.
Definitely. And one of the things that I've seen that I feel is pretty popular right now is I feel like it works for like still life. It doesn't really work for like live action shoots with people as much. But I feel like a lot of photographers weigh in is just doing like little product stop motion. So you start with GIFs and then you can expand to something a little bit larger. But that's kind of like the sweet spot, I feel like, is a way to start getting from like just doing stills into motion.
Yeah, I remember when my photographers were first starting experimenting years ago with motion, and it was obviously daunting. I would say to them, just make your still images move. Let's start with that.
Yeah.
Let's not call you a director right away. Let's just make your still images move. And what is the simplest way to go about doing that? Add some motion, something dynamic to your still images.
But one of the things that I find also cool about that is if you're not traditionally trained in motion, you'll find solutions and you'll find a way into it that's different than what most people who do primarily motion are doing. So there are pros to it for sure. And you can come up with something like make the motion that you want, not the motion that you see from other people.
Exactly. Well, and don't you think that's true for everything that, artists should be doing out there? You don't want to chase the trends. You want to start the trends. So, and I think it's really hard in our industry, especially with artists that were used to being busy for so long and maybe now aren't, because not just, there's just less work out there and there's way more people out there.
Yeah. And everything is very trend based.
And everything is very trend based, and you really have to start pay attention to what your peers are up to and what's happening out there in advertising, rather than just being focused on what's immediately in front of you, because then you're just going to keep creating the same way that you've created over and over again.
I met with a photographer. I can't remember who it was. I think it was at some point 2 years ago, but I know one of the things that she said that stuck out to me was, if there's something that you want to make and you're not getting jobs for it because you don't have like too much experience, then just make it for yourself. Like make personal work, put it on your site. Like sometimes you have to make the work for yourself first before it comes as a job.
Absolutely. I mean, I've always said to my photographers that this idea of waiting for the phone to ring it's not a good business model. I mean, obviously we're professional and commercial in the professional commercial business. So everybody wants to make money,
right?
But when you're creative and artistic, if you wait for the phone to ring to give you the spark that you need to go do something, you're going to fall flat. So you need to keep creating for yourself and go out there and not just create personal work, but collaborate with people, connect with people, talk to people, share your work, all of that, because those are the things that are going to kind of spur on the next, creative idea that you have.
Yeah. And the portfolio reviews and like the screening with different houses and stuff like that. That's my favorite part of the job, like hands down. I just love sitting through it and seeing what everyone's worked on and just get to know new artists. It's the best part.
Well, okay, you've just touched on something that I think is a really big part of what's happening in our industry right now. I can't go out and come to Deutsch and do a portfolio show like I used to, right? And bring the cookies and the muffins and the alcohol, and we have a little party, and you cheerlead for me to get people in the room. Like I can't do that anymore because it's just, we all know why.
Yeah.
But instead, these events like Le Book and Workbook and At Edge and Photo Works and Palm Spring Photo Festivals are all having I don't want to say a resurgence because they were popular before, but what I'm hearing and feeling, having attended a bunch of these events, is that not only people like me who are presenting and excited to get out in front of people, but people like you who are reviewing and attending, whether you're a juror or whether you're a reviewer, or just an attendee, you're excited to come because you also don't have access to those portfolio shows and people coming into your office. So you're looking for it. So we're finally on an equal playing field where we're both excited about this. Whereas sometimes before, it was hard for these events to get reviewers maybe, or jurors, or to get people to attend because for whatever reason, and it was easy for them to say no because they would have access to the information otherwise. So now I feel like there's something very symbiotic about what we both need in these events. And we were just at Le Book in San Francisco and LA, and it was not like it was before the pandemic at all. There was not nearly as many people, but the people that showed up were really valuable. And it felt so good
to quantity or more quality over quantity.
I agree. And it was less of a party. Those things before were starting to feel a bit like a party. Like you'd come and you'd spend all this money and you'd do all this effort. And then it was like, okay, is anybody looking at the work? Or are we just standing around drinking and having fun, which I did not mind. But now I just feel like it's very purposeful. And I'm really appreciating the opportunities that, the the places that are doing this are providing for us. So,
well, and also on the flip side of that, obviously it's always better to be in person. It's great when people are able to come into the office and like actually physically meet with each other. But I think that it's so much easier to meet with somebody like, 4 time zones away from you, just remotely. You can easily share work remotely, then you don't have to be in the same place. So I feel like we had so many of them when we started in 2020. We had like 2 a week, and it got to a point where like, okay, everybody needs a break because we've had so many.
yeah.
And there were so many people who were excited to do that remotely. And it's just like, it makes it less of a, like younger artists who are afraid to do that sort of thing because they don't think that they're there yet. So if you're in person, it's so much more, it's a lot of pressure. Whereas, you can easily access it if it's just like a Zoom link away.
I agree.
So I've kind of personally over the last 2 years been the person to set up like screenings and portfolio reviews. We just recently opened it up from just our production department to our creative teams as well, just because they see some new work, get their creative juices flowing, all of that. And it's been amazing to do and like see so much different work. We've had 2 in the office. We actually just had one today since we kind of moved into our new place, and it's been nice, but it's nice to have the access.
You have people in the office that can actually attend a portfolio show? Is that what it was?
Yeah, so it wasn't like a show. It was just like a review. We were meeting with there was like a producer and head of development for a animation studio in the UK. They happened to be in town, and they asked to stop by and do a screening, and it happened. So we're in the office right now 2 days a month, and just happened to overlap. We had some time, and we're like, yeah, come over, we'll do a screening. They brought us some pizza. It was nice. It's like the old days.
I love to hear that. My son is going to college next year, my last child at home, and I will be spending
oh my goodness.
A lot more time in New York. And I'm really looking forward to that. The ability to be spontaneous like that. It's not like that right now in San Francisco.
Definitely.
But I'm feeling like New York is opening up a bit more that way. And I'm really looking forward to spending more time there doing that.
Yeah, it's been great to when we have had a chance to have people come in. It's much better. But yeah, just still having it just digital has helped, and I think it has opened it up in a different way.
Yeah, I'm happy to hear you say, well, I'm agreeing with you that Zoom fatigue was real. I'm hearing that a lot, and I'm feeling it a lot. But I'm also happy to hear you say we just kind of started up again because it's time to now get a little bit of a refresher. So that's great. It's awesome. Okay, let's talk about estimating. Is it harder or easier, or you haven't given it much thought to get an estimate approved right now?
I wouldn't say it's too much more difficult than it was before. Obviously, everything is more expensive because there's COVID costs on top of it,
Yeah.
Whereas, and padding is so much more important because you go into it knowing like something's going to happen. That's our job as a producer, is to just solve any problems that come up. But the problems that could come up, the list is exponentially longer, as you know. So I feel like just by that, it might be a little tougher because they're seeing higher price tags than they used to. But we are kind of also offsetting that because our clients at least don't really come to sets that much anymore. So they have the ability to join remotely, and they take advantage of that, and they do that, which works out great. But as far as what I've seen, I haven't seen like too big of a difference. But that also might be because the projects that I'm working on currently are on the smaller side. So the people who are handling all the really, big jobs might have seen something different.
And what about your predictions for production through the end of the year? Are you feeling any recession issues or supply chain issues or clients holding back because they're unsure what's going to happen in the world? Are you feeling any of that?
With our clients, as of right now, no. But I can see how that would definitely be a thing, like supply chains, and we just have the whole gamut of things that we have to plan around right now. So it would not surprise me. But currently, with our clients, I wouldn't say so.
And your clients, they're not only doing, motion and photography, they're doing lots of other stuff as well, right? So your spectrum of work, when you say you're busy, it may not always include photography or motion projects. You could be busy with stock or animation or CGI and things like that,
exactly.
right?
Yeah. We have a lot of like digital too, like for like one of our clients is PNC, and they do like a lot of banners. They'll do a lot of like smaller digital stuff and like regular smaller like social campaigns that are mostly just like stock.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, how about budgets for your clients? Do you feel like they're good about it? And do you guys like to share those budgets with the vendors that you're working on or not?
I guess you have to share the budgets with the vendors eventually. But I think that often what's happening now is we'll kind of get a number. Well, production and I feel like account are working even closer than before. And we're kind of in it from the very beginning where we're kind of helping them create things based on the number that we have. So I think, yeah, we do get pretty solid budgets up front, and then we'll help our creative team sort of like concept to the budget.
Yeah, that's important to hear. I'm glad that you guys are talking about it ahead of time. There's so many times where we're brought concepts where they're just too expensive for the budget that they have.
Yeah.
And I know everybody's trying and they're excited and they want to find a way to make it work. But it's especially now where I feel like everything is getting squeezed, yet our costs are increasing. Fuel, airplane, rates, overtime, the inflation part of I'm seeing it in our estimates.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I don't have enough frame of reference to know like where the client budgets were at our agency before, but just a trend that I've seen in general, like they're trying to shrink timelines, they're trying to shrink budgets, but they're trying to maximize how much they can use based off of what you shoot. So like when you're shooting something for TV now, you also have to consider when you're shooting that, how is that going to translate to social? How's it going to translate to print? How's it going to translate to banners? And instead of treating each one like it's separate thing, what I've seen with businesses is they're maximizing profits. So they just want to get it all done at one time and then just repurpose it from there. And like I said, that's not really happening with our clients now. It's just like a general trend that I feel like I've been seeing. And everybody is getting so good at, as I said before, like being that Swiss Army knife, so you can get all of this from one person. Like it's great if you have a scratchy budget.
Is so important.
Yeah. I mean, it is super important and it's good to have that. And if that person that you found can like pull it off, but I just think that there is something to be said for taking your time with it and having a dedicated person for each thing. And like, if it's a big job, like really making it for where it's going to go.
Yeah, I agree with that. We talk about that all the time in our group because sometimes you get a budget and you hear this is it. We can't go anymore. And you're triple bidding something and you're just like, okay, I can't get more than 3 scenarios in a day. Where are we going to provide extra value for these, for this client so that when we go there, we're compared to the other 2 people on the table, we might be providing something a little bit extra that they might not have because it's likely they're not going to be able to get more than 3 scenarios either. So we have to really kind of fine tune our thinking that way. It's important.
Yeah. But, every once in a while in a blue moon, you get that one person who comes in with an idea to elevate the work and like, it's going to be more. And you put it in front of the client and it's a home run. And they're like, okay, let's do it. Like it doesn't always happen, but it's always good to keep that in your back pocket just in case because it does exist. So
no, I agree. I agree with that. Okay, let's talk about treatments and kind of the selection process once you've got your estimates in and you're presenting things to your clients. Do you use them on every job? Do you not always request them? They take so much time. So any advice either also that you can offer to people listening?
Yeah, I've been part of treatments on pretty much every scale. It depends on if it's a smaller job with, really tight budget and a really quick turnaround time. Generally, we'll ask for, just some kind of short presentation of like previous work that you think is applicable to what you're trying to do here with this new job. And then honestly, I think, I know I said this before about writing, but I think personally, writing is the most important part of a treatment because it's so much easier to just lay that out instead of, scraping the internet to find references. So if you have a really short amount of time, like doing a really good, even succinct write-up can make a whole difference.
Yeah, I've had photographers before who do not have, they might be on a big intensive shoot and the treatment could be due in, 24 hours. Send along just an email write-up rather than attach any images, right? Instead of putting together this incredibly designed piece, it's just really kind of outlining their approach. And
best case scenario, just throw that in a little Google Slides doc to zhuzh it up a little bit, but it's the same thing.
Yeah, no, that's great. It's really good advice. Okay, so there was another question I had about treatments. Oh, here's one. Do you share the treatments with your clients, or do you share sections of them, or what of the treatment do the clients see?
So from what I have done over the last 2 years is we'll kind of like tag team the treatment with the creatives. If we feel like something needs to be tweaked, it'll be sort of a collaborative process. If it's a big job and you have that time with the director or the photographer and they're willing to do it. And then for the most part, anything that I was hoping all of it, but anything that might be a little bit extra that we think we don't need, we'll pull out. But we try to put the whole treatment in front of the client.
That's great. I love to hear that because I feel like that's the one part of the process we have zero control over is the access to the client. Yeah. So obviously we triple bid the majority of our jobs, and there's so much amazing talent out there. We're always on the table next to two very amazing alternate options. And while we might be the recommend, it's become a bit of a joke that you don't want to be the recommend anymore because it's a bit of a death. I don't know I'm blanking on the expression, but you basically don't want to be it because once you're the recommend, Murphy's Law says you're not going to get it.
Right.
Because what happens is the client sees all three options and they have a point of view. And when they're all three really great options, what's the big deal if you go one way or another, right? So not having access to the client from our point of view, we would love to be able to meet the client or present to the client. Of course, that's not a reality, but having our treatment be able to get in front of them, all that work and time and effort that got put into the treatment, knowing that,
and I want to respect that time.
Seeing it is really, it makes a difference for us. So I love that you guys share it with the client. So thank you. Not everybody does. So
yeah, of course. And another totally random one-off about treatments is I've had like once or twice have someone put in like a playlist along with their treatment, and it's my favorite thing. It really sells me. I don't know if it does anything for a client, but I love it. I love having a playlist.
Oh, that's great. I love that. I love that way of thinking. Thank you for that idea. Okay, so do you feel like in the selection process, if there's anything that clients or agencies need to be better educated about in terms of the review process, or maybe reps and photographers, anything better that we need to understand? Or do you feel like the process is pretty cut and dry and everybody's expectations are in line?
That is a good question.
There might not be an answer. I mean, I feel like we're constantly evolving and we're constantly educating each other. I think on my end, I'll give you a second to think. On my end, kind of what I just touched on with that treatment idea, all the time and effort, and it's a lot. It's, missed time with your family. It's the weekends. It's, there's so much after work time that is put into, creating these treatments that to really understand or recognize and appreciate that they've been shared with everybody and read, giving some good feedback and connection about it. And then if we don't get a job, really sharing with us the reasons why, not just, oh, sorry, we went another direction, but recognizing there's been so much time put into this, more so than ever. And our at-bats are way less, so it hurts more when you lose a job. So really just kind of taking that extra second to share the treatment and explain why or why not we didn't get a job.
Yeah. I try to do that. I've done that like once or twice before, but especially when sometimes these things can go for a while, and it's just, you always have to. I definitely recognize that. Like it is a lot of work. But sometimes what we'll do is, it's happened for us in the past where someone did an absolutely amazing treatment. it didn't work out specifically, but we loved the treatment so much, we showed it to a couple of the other producers and we ended up bringing him on for a job later. So like,
Oh,
even if
great.
it doesn't sell that one, at least what the production agency like shares everything, so even if it might not work for that thing, we always try to use it, as a reference for the future. So even if you think that you might not get it, it could always be, used for something else, for a reference for something else.
That's actually a really great idea, right? If you don't get a job, right? For me to say to you, Taylor, hey, Taylor, thank you for the consideration. If there was anyone else in the agency who works on this account or something similar that you think sharing the treatment with just to review could be helpful, give a bit of an insight into how we work, please do forward it along,
Definitely.
assuming that works within the NDA requirements. But, if you could get a little bit more legs out of that treatment, that would be great. So,
and there
that's a great
are
idea.
like specific brands too who are set, they have their go-to people, and there's specific creative folks that have their go-to people. So it takes a little bit more chipping away at it to get like a new person who maybe be more emerging or has like some slightly different work. You put them in front of them the first time, they're not like totally sold, but it plants the seed.
Yeah, no, that's great. Okay, so how are photographers or directors, getting your attention now, or reps even? What's the most effective and useful message that kind of rises to the top for you?
So I personally try to read as many newsletters as I can. I obviously get a lot of them. So I try to respond to the ones that are, kind of in line with what I have coming up. Doing the portfolio reviews and like the screenings obviously helps a lot because it's easier to see the face, if in-person meetings aren't, the best way to go about it. And what I'm about to say is also, I feel like not the best way to do it, but it's something that I've kind of fallen back on. Is I've been using Instagram as a tool a lot just because it's kind of turned into, at least for the industry, like social portfolios, and increasingly, depending on what the project is, like clients will want to see like what their reach is. Do I think that's the best way to judge the success of a photographer or director? Absolutely not. But it does help to see how they're interacting with their community. They usually, it's the quickest to update, like an Instagram, instead of updating a website. And so I have like things saved. I have like little folders in my like saved post of, like talent agencies, of photographers for this specific thing, of directors for this specific thing, of like post houses. It's kind of like how I
like
personally store
or
it.
Something?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely not the best way to do it. And I kind of want to get off of that because Instagram is basically just turning into TikTok at this point.
Yeah.
Which is very strange for photographers. I feel like the impact that Instagram has had on like modern photographers is, you could write a book about it. And there definitely needs to be some kind of just still photo platform that photographers can use, because I feel like Instagram is making it difficult for them.
Yeah. Well, there is that great resource Commune. I don't know if you've noticed or if you've paid attention to that. You should go check it out. It is it's KOMYOON.
Oh, I spelled that so wrong.
Yeah, it's not intuitive, but it's a very beautiful app and interface, and it's very Instagram focused, and it's solely focused on photographers, directors, kind of sharing their work in a very similar fashion.
Okay, that's awesome.
So check it out. Okay, so do you feel comfortable hiring vendors that you haven't worked with yet, or are you gravitating to people that you trust right now?
I love working with new people. It's my favorite thing.
That's great.
I mean, I love having like go-to people that you work with a lot. It's easy to grow that relationship, so you know exactly the boundaries of what they can and cannot do, and especially with a client or a creative has worked with them before, it helps with the trust, and you can maybe push further boundaries with that person that you've used. But I mean, the whole point of the industry, I think, is to work with new people and get fresh takes on things. Like how many times has somebody made a commercial? Right. You got to get new people in there. But it's similar to what I said before. It kind of can be tricky. You got to chip away at it to get people to go with, newer people or emerging people. But it's always worth it.
Yeah, I had a conversation with somebody about that today, just how you get so excited when you're a new person being considered, but it doesn't always mean you're going to get the project because you're new, right? The client might just feel more comfortable, but there is such value in the face time that you're getting that it may not be the first time, it may be the second or the third time that we connect with them that it actually kind of happens. So it's all worth it in the process, but it doesn't make it easier when you don't get it. So yeah, no, this is all like super interesting, Taylor. You had some really great insights. Before we end, I would love to ask you the two questions that I ask everyone. The first one being, if you were not a producer, what would you be?
So, not industry related at all. I would love to make perfume. I think it's like absolutely fascinating. And when COVID shut everybody down, the Institute of Olfaction at, I think it's in San Francisco or maybe it's LA, they opened up their classes to be remote. So I took like a couple months of perfume making classes and I thought it was amazing. I would build an empire.
Oh my God. Did you see Halston? The documentary, like I think it was on Netflix or
Hulu. It was so good. Yeah, that whole episode about the perfume bottle, I was like, I want to do that.
It was so crazy cool. I loved it. Yeah, that's really interesting. I've mentioned this to you before, but I think the one of the other answers that I love on this one was a bus driver, and I think you and the bus driver now are my favorite. Yeah, his point was, if you are a bus driver, you literally have a beginning and an end to your day. And he really appreciated that.
Yeah, that's true.
So I thought that was great. Okay. So what's your favorite thing to do on a Sunday?
So Sundays are definitely rest days. I'm always just usually at home hanging out. I live with my boyfriend. We'll make usually some kind of like a Sunday sauce, like a red sauce, pasta sauce, but I'm also baking on Sunday a lot. I'm actually making my sister's wedding cake in a few weeks. So I've been practicing mostly for that. That's what I've been doing like every Sunday for the last few months. It's like a smaller cake on the smaller side, but I'm usually baking something.
All right. Well, I require a photo if you even remember, or maybe you'll put it on social, but that is very impressive. So I'd love to see that.
Definitely. I'm sure I'll post it somewhere, but I will send it to you for sure. Okay. I've been just like giving cake to all of my friends because I have all this leftover cake. You know, I'm like, you guys want some cake? Here, take it.
That's great. Well, good luck with that. And thank you so much for doing this. You were fantastic and amazing. And I just loved getting to know you more. So have fun at the wedding and your next Sunday. And I think the next time I check out a perfume, I'll probably think of you.
I love that. That's great. If you think of me with cake and perfume, love it.
I know, right? What's better than that? Oh my God, that's perfect.
That can be my legacy. I love that. All right. Thank you so much. It was really great talking to you.
Absolutely. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.